This is your bill for this month. Starting next month, $1, $200 a month. Includes rent, utilities, internet, and living expenses. Payment due by the 1st. Late payments will incur a penalty. I looked at him. His eyes didn't blink as if he were reciting a sales contract. No hesitation, no unease. As if he'd just announced we were having roasted chicken for dinner as usual. I picked up the envelope, my hand trembling slightly. White paper, sharp corners, my name printed in bold Times New Roman font. Rachel Winters. Not our daughter, not family. Just a name like that of a tenant. I'm Rachel, 24 years old. By day, I'm a bank teller at a small branch in a suburban Oregon town. By night, I wait tables at an Italian restaurant 15 minutes from home. I sleep little, eat sparingly, and drink more coffee than water. But I still thought I was building a future free enough, decent enough, and if I was lucky, peaceful enough. I kept trying to believe everything I did was for family. But the moment my father handed me that envelope, I knew that belief had begun to crack. I glanced across the table. Liam, my younger brother, sprawled on the couch, phone in hand, earbuds in one hand, shoving potato chips into his mouth. He didn't look up, didn't ask, "What's that?" Didn't show surprise, as if his sister being asked to pay rent was perfectly normal. "Why, I started though, I wasn't sure what I was asking. What about Liam?" I blurted, my voice a bit louder than necessary. My mother, Diane, cut in, her voice as smooth as honey poured over a verdict. "Liam's in the phase of finding his passion. You, on the other hand, have 2 stable jobs, sweetheart. It's time you learned to be an adult." I turned to look at her, hoping to catch a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But there was none. Her gaze was calm, even proud, as if she were bestowing upon me a grand gift called responsibility. I looked back at the envelope in my hand. $1, $200. Of that, $800 was rent for the bedroom I grew up in, with the blue floral curtains my mother picked out when I was 10. $200 for utilities. $200 for contributions to shared living expenses. Starting next month, my father said, then sliced into his chicken as if wrapping up a business meeting. I nodded slightly, saying nothing. My left hand clenched under the table while my right flipped the envelope over. The bill listed every item clearly complete with due dates and a warning of a $50 late fee. I folded it, tucked it into my purse, and ate the cold chicken. Dinner continued in silence. Except for Liam's chewing and my mother's clinking cutlery, there was only a void, a soundless, shapeless void heavy as a stone pressing on my chest. After dinner, I excused myself to my room. As I climbed the stairs, my mother texted, "Don't forget to wash your dishes. Everyone contributes in this house." I opened my laptop. My bank account showed a balance just enough to cover rent if I skipped lunch for the next 3 weeks. A notification popped up my credit card had been auto-charged for the internet bill. I checked the invoice. The account was in Liam's name. I started digging. Every month, nearly $60 was deducted for an online gaming service. Another $20 for an anime streaming app. All tied to Liam's email. Each time my card was charged, without a single request for permission. A text from my mother appeared. "You can pay in cash at the start of each month. Makes it easier to manage." I looked out the window. Liam had just driven off, probably to a friend's, to play games as he did every Friday night. He'd come back late, leave dirty dishes on the table, and sleep until noon. My mother would clean up or not, then tell me to mop the floor because you're the adult in the house. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The next day I arrived at the bank earlier than usual. Joseph, my co-worker at the next desk, handed me a coffee. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, half joking, half serious. "Worse than a ghost. A bill." I gave a weak smile, showing him a photo of the invoice on my phone. "My family's charging me $1, $200 to live in my own room." Joseph let out a low whistle. "That's more than my mortgage." I nodded. "And my brother pays nothing. But he's using my card for his games." Joseph put a hand on my shoulder. "Rachel, this isn't normal. They're not teaching you responsibility. They're taking advantage of you." I stayed silent. But inside something shifted. Not impulsive anger, but a quiet, calculated undercurrent. I needed to act, and this time I wouldn't play the obedient daughter anymore. That night I opened a savings account at a different bank, naming it Freedom Plan. I created a new email setup, 2-factor authentication, photographed the bill, and saved it in a folder called Evidence. Then I went downstairs, took $1, $200 from my paycheck envelope, and handed it to my father. "Good job," he said, not looking up from his newspaper. Liam passed by, a bowl of cereal in hand. "Hey, can you lend me $20 for gas?" I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. For the first time in months, I didn't see the cute little boy he once was, but a young man living entirely off someone else's silent sacrifices. "Sorry," I said calmly. "I'm tight on money these days." My mother immediately reacted, her eyes snapping up from her phone. "Rachel, don't be selfish. Family helps each other." I smiled a cold, stiff smile. "You're right, Mom. Family should help each other." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. In my mind, I started calculating. 1 year, no 2 years. If I lived frugally to the extreme, picked up extra weekend shifts, saved every penny I could leave. Not just leave escape for good. My phone screen lit up. A notification $59.99 had been deducted for a new game on Steam. I exhaled slowly, my lips curved slightly. If they wanted to teach me a lesson about adult life, I'd learn. And I'd learn it thoroughly. Some battles don't need gunfire, just an Excel spreadsheet and ironclad patience. I didn't yell, didn't throw the bill in my father's face, didn't cry in my room like a wounded daughter. The next day after receiving the envelope, I woke up early as usual, drank cold coffee, as always drove to the bank and greeted customers with the polite smile I wore like a mask every day. But inside, everything had changed. During my lunch break, I opened my laptop and created a Google Sheets document naming it Ledger A1, a boring enough name to go unnoticed. In it, I created columns: date, amount, purpose, user, notes. The first entry, SWAN014-1200, rent, Rachel, paid in cash, no official receipt. I knew reacting emotionally would make me lose. My family didn't need my anger. They needed me to be tired. And that was something I decided not to give them. Joseph saw me typing furiously and tilted his head. "What's that document?" I turned, smiling faintly. "A kind of diary, for family." He nodded. "If it's a financial diary, even better. Keep everything. Every penny matters." And I did just that. Every transaction, every misused expense, every bill I paid recorded meticulously. I even added a small section below notable quotes, where I logged lines like "family helps each other" or "you have 2 jobs, Rachel, Liam hasn't found his path yet." I installed a recording app on my phone, activating it every time I handed over rent money. I wasn't planning to sue. I just wanted evidence, like a soldier digging a trench waiting for the day I'd have enough ammunition. On the first of each month, I placed the money in an envelope exactly as they'd given me and set it on the dining table. I said nothing. Neither did they. Silence became the primary form of communication in the house. Outside banking hours, I started taking extra shifts at the restaurant. A shift from 6 p.m. to midnight, washing glasses, wiping tables, counting tips, getting home at 1 a.m. I no longer had time to wonder why I accepted this life. I was running not away from them, but towards something big enough to make the pain worthwhile. Naomi, my high school best friend, texted to ask if I'd come to her birthday party. "Working the night shift now. Sorry, I'll treat you to coffee another day. Again, you're turning into a ghost." I didn't reply. I was afraid if I said one more word, I'd cry. Liam lived like a separate entity in the same space. Sleeping till noon, gaming in the afternoon, going out with friends at night, no one caring where. I heard his laughter echo in the living room, light from 3 screens reflecting on the ceiling like a tech festival. I used to love Liam. Thought I was a good sister. But now watching him spend my money, live irresponsibly, and be shielded by our parents, I felt like I was living with a greedy, invisible ghost. Once my mother knocked on my door asking if I could fix the printer that wasn't working. It's printing faint, probably the network. I went downstairs and saw Liam downloading a new game clogging the bandwidth. "I pay for that internet, Liam. Mom said I could use it freely. But it's my card. You're the adult. You have 2 jobs. You can handle it." I didn't respond. I just quietly added a new line to the spreadsheet. 1504, $59.99, Steam game, Liam installed, using Rachel's paid internet. At the end of April, the bank had a glitch with transaction hours. The first fell on a Sunday when the bank was closed. I withdrew money on Monday the 2nd and placed the envelope on the table during dinner. My father picked it up, checked it, then frowned. "Late by 1 day, $50 penalty." I looked up. The bank was closed on Sunday. "Doesn't matter. You need to learn to prepare. Late is late." I stared at him, searching for a crack in his iron gaze. There was none. Just the father who taught me to ride a bike at 7, now counting every dollar like I was a stranger renting his house. I said nothing more. I pulled out my wallet, placed $50 on the table, and went to my room, and typed into the spreadsheet. 05, 50, late fee for 1 day. Rachel, due to bank closure on Sunday. The coldness in my chest grew sharper. Not from them. From the irreversible realization I was no longer a member of this family. I was the provider, an interest-free financier, a living tool. Joseph noticed I was getting thinner. He brought me a protein bar every morning. "Eat breakfast, Rachel. Coffee isn't enough." I smiled, nodded, and pocketed it. I needed money. I needed freedom. Everything else could wait. At the end of the month, Naomi called. I didn't pick up. I was afraid hearing her voice would break me. I didn't let myself break. I password-protected the spreadsheet, saved a copy to a separate USB. I bought a small safe storing all original bills inside. Handwritten notes, recordings, photos. Each piece of evidence was a brick I laid for a future they never thought I could build. I looked around my room where certificates and drawings from high school once hung. Now it was just a white-walled box, a place to wait, waiting for the day I'd break free. And my family, they ate dinner as usual. Dad read the paper. Mom checked social media. Liam sprawled playing games. No one asked if I'd eaten. No one asked how many hours I slept. No one asked why I stopped smiling. But I didn't need them to ask. I just needed them to remember every dollar they made me pay. Because one day when they faced the true cost of the lessons they so proudly imposed, they'd learn that every lesson has consequences. And not everyone keeps learning without teaching back. I opened the spreadsheet again, added a note at the bottom. The worst pain isn't when others betray you. It's when you're forced to fight back against those you once called home. Then I closed the laptop. I didn't know how long this game would last. But I knew the day I left this place wouldn't be in tears but in silence, with evidence, a plan, and power. And that night, I began learning to wield all three. Some truths don't stab the heart like a knife, but slowly drain trust like water wearing down stone. I thought I'd grown used to being used, but nothing prepared me for what Emma was about to say. That day, Emma Warner, our old neighbor and a longtime real estate agent, stopped by the restaurant where I worked. She came for dinner with friends, ordered a glass of red wine and seafood pasta. When I brought the bill, Emma held me back, her eyes softening. "Are you busy? Can you sit with me for a bit? There's something I think you should know." I nodded, my stomach tightening. Emma wasn't one for gossip. If she said you should know, it wasn't trivial. We sat in a corner of the restaurant. Dim lights, soft jazz in the background. Emma folded her arms, placing her phone on the table like an invisible piece of evidence. "The other day I helped your parents refinance their mortgage," she began, her voice steady. "But something's off. They're 5 months behind on payments, Rachel." I froze. "What?" "Yeah, they're on the verge of foreclosure. And the strange thing is," she tilted her head toward me, "they're still collecting $1,200 from you every month, right?" I tried to keep my face neutral, but bitterness rose to my throat. I gasped. They said it was to teach me responsibility, a lesson in adulthood. Emma stayed silent for a moment, then said softly, "No, Rachel. They're using you to try to keep the house from being foreclosed. And not one word of it is about your growth. They're just saving themselves." I don't remember how I left the restaurant. I only recall my hands shaking so much I couldn't unlock the car, my heart racing with humiliated fury. I sat in the car for nearly 10 minutes, headlights off, phone screen glowing with unread messages. One from my mother. "Tomorrow's the 1st, don't forget to prepare the money. Liam's been using a lot of electricity, so the bill's a bit higher." One from Liam. "Can you order pizza tomorrow night? Mom says you still have the card." I gave a crooked laugh. No more tears. No more anger. Just one thing left clarity. I texted Joseph. I was wrong. They're not teaching me to be an adult. They're just scared of losing their roof. He replied instantly. "And what will you do with that truth?" I didn't respond, but in my mind a plan took shape. The next day I met Emma at her office downtown. The room had glass walls overlooking the distant Cascade Mountains, bathed in sunlight. "I want to buy that house," I said, no preamble. Emma raised an eyebrow. "In your name?" "No," I replied. "I want it anonymous. Completely." She nodded as if she'd expected it. "There's a way. Set up a limited liability company, an LLC. The company's name will be on the house. Everything's legal and hard to trace back." I nodded, no hesitation. "The company will be called Vanquish Properties." Emma tilted her head. Vanquish sounds strong. "It means to defeat, to conquer. Fitting." We started mapping it out. I needed a private mailbox, a P.O. box unrelated to my current address. A separate bank account for the company. I needed to research property taxes, legal obligations, the process of buying a foreclosed property. That night I lay in bed, laptop glowing faintly. For the first time in months, I wasn't searching for scholarships or a third job. but how an ordinary person could buy their family's house, not to kick them out, but to take control. Not just ownership, but the power to decide my own fate. Liam knocked on my door at 11 p.m. "Have you seen your credit card? I need to buy the new expansion for my game." I didn't answer, just said softly, "I'm busy." Busy with what? Always locking yourself in. I heard his footsteps retreat, the door slamming shut. But I didn't care. I was building something bigger than they could imagine, a plan for freedom, and I wouldn't let anyone interrupt it anymore. 3 weeks later, things were falling into place. I had a private mailbox. Vanquish Properties was established. Joseph helped with accounting. Emma handled the legal side. We tracked the house's financial status like a doctor monitoring a critical patient. Every payment deadline, every credit report, every call from the bank to my parents. I was no longer just a girl working 2 jobs to survive. I was becoming the one making the rules of my own game. At home, things went on as usual. Mom reminded me to pay on time. Dad added a fee for increased trash costs. Liam kept spending on my card, like he was the protagonist in a role-playing game. But I said nothing. I just opened the spreadsheet, added a line. 15006, $45, trash fee, Rachel, no receipt. Dad's quote, "Those who use more should pay more," and below a small note, the first in green, projected to file house purchase in week 2 of July. Owner, Vanquish Properties, LLC. Operator, Rachel Winters. One Sunday evening, I sat drinking tea with Emma on her porch. Soft yellow lights. Warm, early summer air. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. I nodded. "Even if it means they'll never see you as their daughter again." I looked up at the sky, then replied softly, "They stopped seeing me as their daughter a long time ago. I'm just taking back my identity." Emma said nothing more. She just poured more tea. When I got home, Liam was gaming the room, flickering with screen light. Mom was on the phone chatting with someone. Dad was watching financial news. I walked past them. No one asked where I'd been or what I was doing, and I didn't need them to ask anymore, because at that moment I knew I was about to become the only person in this house who truly knew what they were doing. Not just to survive, but to win. A text came at 7:14 p.m. as I sat in my car outside a convenience store, just finishing an afternoon shift at the bank. Light rain fell, fogging the windshield headlights, casting streaks on the wet pavement. "Rachel, your dad fell down the stairs. His foot's badly swollen. Liam's not home. I don't know what to do." I stared at the screen fingers frozen on the steering wheel. My heart didn't race. Instead, there was a long stillness in my chest. No clear emotion, just an empty space. I didn't start the car right away. I didn't reply to the text. I sat still, watching raindrops fall steadily on the glass, wondering who I'd be if I drove away, and who I'd become if I hit the gas and headed toward them. Did I owe them? No. I'd been treated like a stranger. They collected money from me monthly without thanks. They fined me for being a day late, calling it a lesson in adulthood. They defended Liam unconditionally while I always had to prove I was kind enough to be treated like a daughter. I didn't owe them, but I owed myself. I didn't want to become their version of me, someone who put rules before compassion. I didn't want to live in a world where kindness was traded for bills and conditions. I started the car. When I arrived, my mother stood on the porch, eyes swollen and wet. The rain had just stopped. The air was damp and cold, seeping through my clothes. "Your dad's in the living room. He can't walk. He refuses to call an ambulance." I nodded, said nothing, and walked inside. My father, Mark, lay tilted on the couch, his right leg propped on a cushion, eyes half closed. His face was pale, lips pressed tight to suppress pain. When he heard my footsteps, he opened his eyes, glancing at me wary, as if I were an auditor, not his daughter. "No need for a hospital," he said, each word strained. "Just a sprain." I sat on the chair across from him, studying the purple swelling spreading from his ankle to his calf. "If you want to walk normally again, you need an X-ray. It could be a fracture." My voice was calm, like an ER nurse. He didn't reply, just stared at the floor. I turned to my mother. Mom grabbed Dad's coat and wallet. "I'll drive." She nodded faintly and went to the room. I stepped closer to the couch, leaning down. My father flinched as I slid my arm behind his back. "You don't need to do this," he muttered, but didn't push me away. "Pride doesn't fix broken bones, Dad." He didn't respond. I helped him to the car step by step. He limped, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. When I opened the car door, he paused, not looking at me, and said softly, "We've gone too far, haven't we?" I froze for a moment. Wind slipped through my jacket, icy. I didn't answer. But in that moment, I knew I'd forgiven not for him, but for myself, so I wouldn't carry resentment for life. The hospital wasn't crowded. The nurse took my father for an x-ray, and I sat in the waiting room staring at the cold white lights on the ceiling. I remembered being a kid, how every time I fell off my bike, Dad would carry me inside clean, my scrapes apply a band-aid and blow on my knee. He used to say, "Pain's a small thing as long as you don't give up." I wondered if he realized the pain I'd carried for 2 years wasn't about money, but about being turned into a tool, a means to keep the house they called home. When the doctor said it was just a severe sprain, I sighed in relief. I signed the paperwork for him, then drove him home. On the way, he was silent. So was I. But between our silences, something had changed. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. And sad. When we got home, I helped him up the steps, settled him in a chair. My mother rushed out with a towel and warm water. Neither said thank you, nor asked if I was tired. But I wasn't expecting it anymore. I walked quickly to my room, closed the door. The laptop screen glowed faintly. I opened the spreadsheet, added a new line. 2107, hospital, emergency transport, Rachel, no charge, no debt recorded, no expectation of thanks. I scrolled to the notes section. After a moment, I wrote, "Love doesn't get erased. It just gets pushed back when trust shatters." I sat quietly for a while, looked out the window at the yellow porch light, my mother's shadow moving in the kitchen, the TV hum from the living room, Liam's loud laughter as he talked on the phone with friends. Familiar scenes, but they no longer felt like home. I didn't belong here anymore, but that didn't hurt as much as it used to. The next morning, Joseph handed me a coffee as usual. "Heard you were at the hospital last night." "Yeah, Dad fell down the stairs." "And you still went back to help?" I nodded. Joseph was quiet for a moment, then said, "You don't need to explain. I just want to say, sometimes the strongest person isn't the one who takes revenge, but the one who doesn't let resentment define them." I gave a small smile. I didn't do it for them. I did it for me, so I can sleep soundly at night knowing I'm not becoming a copy of them. Joseph patted my shoulder. "Then you're on the right track." That evening I got a text from Emma. "Paperwork's ready. We can officially submit the offer to buy the house next week." I stared at the message waves of emotions rising. I was about to become the legal owner of the house where for 2 years I'd been exploited and learned to grow stronger because of it. And the greatest irony, I didn't feel triumphant. Just calm. No one thought I could do it. But I did. In silence. With patience and without losing the best parts of myself. I sat in my car across the street watching through sunglasses. My hand gripped a warm coffee cup, but my heart was cold and utterly clear. After months of collecting, proving, filing, waiting, and calculating, the final game had reached its end. Dad was the one to check the mail. He stood at the mailbox longer than usual, eyes fixed on an envelope with an unfamiliar company name, Vanquish Properties, LLC. I could see his brows furrow from a distance. He walked inside, closing the door harder than usual. I didn't leave. I waited. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed repeatedly. Texts from Mom, then Dad, then Liam. "Rachel, what's going on?" "Dad got a letter about a property transfer. It says the house isn't in our name anymore." "Rachel, call me back. Do you know something about this?" "What the hell are you doing? This is our family's house?" I didn't reply. I drove slowly toward the house. For the first time in years, I parked in the driveway, not on the curb like a temporary guest. The door opened before I could knock. All three stood there. Dad, Mom, and Liam, faces pale, stunned, as if they'd just realized the house was an illusion, and the one truly in control was standing right in front of them. "It's you," Mom stammered. "You're the one who bought the house?" I nodded, handing her a thin stack of documents, a copy of the transfer deed, the legal contract under my company's name, and a special photocopy, the first rent bill they'd given me. Dad took it, lips pressed tight. I looked at him for the first time, not lowering my gaze. "I just wanted things to be fair," I said calmly. "From now on, if you and Mom and Liam want to stay here, I need $1,500 a month. That includes rent, utilities, internet, and shared living expenses. If you're late, I'll charge a fee just like you taught me." Mom clutched her chest, collapsing into a chair. She cried. Not the proud, silent tears of before. Real, panicked, broken sobs. "You can't do this to your parents," she repeated. "You can't. You're my daughter." Liam exploded, his face red. "Are you insane? This is our house, our family's house. You can't take it and make us pay. You can't do this to family." I turned to my brother. My voice stayed soft but clear. No, Liam, I didn't take anything. I bought it. Legally. No tricks, no manipulation, no forcing anyone. And I'm doing nothing but applying the lesson this family taught me. If you want to live in a house, pay for it on time. If not, you leave. Liam stepped back as if slapped. Dad still hadn't spoken. He just stared at the paper, his eyes torn. I knew he was wrestling between pride and the undeniable truth I'd won. Not with schemes, not with vengeance, but with the very rules they'd imposed on me. I didn't say more. I placed the documents on the dining table where they'd first given me the bill and walked to the door. Mom ran after me, grabbing my hand. Rachel, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would come to this. I just thought. I looked at her. Her eyes weren't the same. No longer haughty, no longer proud. Just the genuine lost look of a mother who'd forgotten the line between a lesson and manipulation. I forgive you, I said, but I won't forget. I let go of her hand and stepped down the porch. That evening I sat in the small apartment I'd rented a week earlier when I knew the house purchase was nearly complete. The room was tiny, just a bed, a desk, and a bookshelf. But I'd never felt such peace. I opened my laptop. The old spreadsheet was still there. I added a new line. Is08. Rent, family, $500, month, payment due on the 1st. Late fee, $75, non-negotiable. Below, I wrote, fairness isn't punishment. It's an exact reflection of what was sown. The next day, Joseph stopped by my usual coffee shop. I heard he said, sitting down with a small smile, "You really did it." I smiled faintly. I don't know if I should feel proud or guilty. "You should feel right," Joseph said. "You didn't take revenge. You gave back. That's a big difference." I nodded, then asked softly, "Will they hate me?" Joseph shrugged. "Maybe. But if they ever truly loved you, they'll learn the biggest lesson: love can't be used to manipulate. And kindness doesn't mean weakness." 3 days later, Mom sent me the first check, exactly $1,500, with a handwritten note. "We'll try to learn how to be a family again." I didn't know how long that would last, or if we could truly heal. But I knew I'd done the right thing. I didn't reclaim fairness with tears or hatred. I did it with clarity, legality, and the steadiest patience I could muster in the house that once devoured my youth. I didn't let them walk over me forever, but I didn't walk over them either. And that's the difference between a victim and an adult. I closed the notebook. Tonight I'd visit Dad. I heard his foot was better. Mom said he wanted to talk privately. Maybe a thank you. Maybe a goodbye. Whatever it was, I'd listen, because forgiveness wasn't for their sake. It was for mine, so I could live lightly. The first morning in my new studio, I brewed coffee with a second-hand machine from a flea market cracked the window to let sunlight spill onto the drafting table. The smell of paint paper and light blended into a quiet happiness, one I didn't need to voice, but could feel clearly in my fingertips. I no longer lived in the old house. No longer woke up to vague bills and sweet words laced with pressure. No longer needed 2 jobs just to keep a place in a family I never truly belonged to. Now I lived in a small space, quiet enough to hear my own thoughts. And above all, big enough to paint myself. In the left corner of the studio, I was finishing my largest painting, yet a portrait of a woman standing amid layered colors, her face not smiling, but serene. Her hair flowed in the wind, but her feet stayed grounded. I knew exactly who she was. It was me. A text from Liam came one early autumn evening as I was applying the final strokes to the background. "You were right. I started working night shifts at a game store. Pays not much, but at least I'm not living off someone else's money anymore. I'm sorry, Rachel. Really." I read the message 3 times. Not because I didn't believe it. Because I needed to be sure I wasn't imagining it. Liam's voice for the first time wasn't that of an immature kid, but of someone trying to be decent. I didn't reply right away. I set the phone down, exhaled deeply. The lightness was strange, like letting go of a stone you didn't realize you were clutching. Mom visited me on a Saturday afternoon. She brought a paper box, clutching it to her chest as if afraid its contents would break. I invited her into the studio, poured her a cup of ginger tea. "Are you doing okay like this?" she asked, her eyes glancing at the unfinished painting. I nodded. "I'm okay, and free." She opened the box. Inside was a painting I'd done at 14, the one that won first place in a spring art contest at school. A girl sat by a window light, slanting across her, holding a book but looking far away. "Your father used to hang it in his office," she said softly. "Things got messy later, but that doesn't mean we were never proud. I looked at the painting emotions layering inside me. I thought I'd forgotten, but I'd only hidden it, like tucking a broken mirror into a drawer afraid to look. "I'm sorry," she said, her hands trembling slightly. "Not just for what happened, but for staying silent too long, letting you carry what we should have faced together." I didn't reply right away. I stood, went to the cabinet, and pulled out a new glass frame. I quietly fitted the old painting into it, hanging it on the wall near the window where sunlight hit every morning. "This painting isn't just mine," I said, turning back. "It's proof that the good things in our family once existed, and I choose to keep that part." A text from Emma came 2 days later. "All paperwork's done. The house is sold. They've moved to a small apartment near the park. You can visit when you're free." They're okay. I didn't feel sad or triumphant. Just a gentle closure, like the final knot untied, not painful, but leaving a mark that time would learn to fade. On the official opening day of my studio, Naomi, Joseph, and Emma came. They brought a long, carefully wrapped gift box. I opened it, a set of handmade Italian brushes, the kind I'd dreamed of but never dared buy. Naomi grinned, spreading her hands. "This isn't for a new house, okay? It's for your studio." Joseph chimed in, "And for new dreams. No one gets to distort them again." I hugged them. No need for many words. We'd walked through dark times together, and today we could stand in the sunlight, no one retreating in silence anymore. That night alone in the studio, a breeze slipped through the window, gently lifting the white curtain. I stood before the unfinished painting. The woman in the painting still had no eyes. I picked up a brush, dipped it in soft brown, and slowly filled in her gaze, not cold, not sad, not resentful, but the look of someone who'd walked through every conflict and chose to heal. I didn't forget the bills, the accusations, the late nights when my hands shook from exhaustion, yet still held cash envelopes like a silent tenant. But I also didn't forget an apology text, an old painting, a hug without conditions. I forgave not to ease anyone else's heart, but to let myself live fully. I grew not through bitterness, but through chosen calm. And I won not by knocking anyone down, but by standing firm at the right time in the right way as the right person. Looking back on my journey, I understand that forgiveness is not easy, but it's necessary to live lightly. I no longer resent my parents or blame Liam, for I've chosen healing over repeating the cycle of hurt. This story isn't about casting blame, but about reflecting. Sometimes people hurt each other not out of malice, but because they never learned to love the right way. I hope my journey serves as a reminder to those who've ever felt lost in their own family, you are not alone. Growing up isn't about learning to endure, but about learning to stand up, preserving your self-worth without losing compassion. If this story touches something in you, please share your thoughts below. You can also follow the channel to stay updated on more authentic, moving, and deeply human stories like this. I'm Rachel, and this is how I learned that kindness isn't weakness, but the most enduring strength.